If you had asked anyone before 2015 if they knew McLaren Honda and they said yes, you would get comments like, "Oh yeah, the most dominant car in F1 history, right? Yeah, I remember Prost/Senna winning a ton with them. Of course, McLaren's glory days, and tons more of the sort." But if you ask someone about McLaren Honda now, they either burst out laughing, or if they are McLaren or Honda fans, start crying. What happened in that time? Well, we are gonna retell the complete story here, from beginning to end, to try and get to the bottom of what actually happened to McLaren Honda. For the actual beginning of this story, we have to go back all the way to 2009, after Braun won the world title with Jenson Button. Mercedes announced their intentions of purchasing the team and re-entering Formula 1 for the first time since 1955. But it wasn't good news for McLaren, or as they were known at the time, McLaren Mercedes, due to the partnership that the two endured for over a decade at that point, bringing with it 3 championships and 50 joint wins. But with this new Mercedes team, McLaren wouldn't be the sole focus of Mercedes, and team principal Ron Dennis knew this, stating that no team can win in F1 as a customer team. That is why, in May 17th, Honda announced that they would be partnering McLaren for a new change in regulations from 2015, making a return after 6 years of absence in the sport since they left before the 2009 season. McLaren and Honda had an amazingly rich racing history together. In a short 4 years, they cemented their joint effort as one of the biggest in F1 history, scoring 39 wins out of 64 races contested together, banking every single championship those years, and leaving an air of incompletion. Maybe there was something more and the fans knew it. That's why Takanobu Ito, president and CEO of Honda, was quoted as saying, "Together with McLaren, one of the most distinguished F1 constructors, Honda will mark a new beginning in our challenges in F1. And what a challenge it was. 2014 came and went, and in post-season testing, McLaren brought a modified version of their car for the year, the MP429, for testing with the new engine, and the car suffered problems throughout the whole test, completing a total of 6 untimed laps over the 2 days at the Yas Marina circuit. Although racing director Eric Boulier said the first run went, quote, very well. We all knew what was going to happen on the 2015 season. 2015 got off to a shocker. In 4 days of preseason testing at Jerez, the McLaren MP430 completed a measly 79 laps and was the only car which failed to pass the 100 lap mark at the Spanish track. If we let that number slide, we could not ignore the raw pace, or lack thereof. Despite being driven by 2-time world champion Fernando Alonso and 2009 champion Jenson Button, the McLaren was the slowest car to set a lap time on each of the 4 days. The car was sporting a really narrow engine cover, wrapping around the whole thing as we see today with the Mercedes cars, Aston Martins and a few more. And the engine itself was built to operate at higher temperatures, but certainly not enough. The power unit was widely criticized by the wider Formula 1 community, with the trim struggles becoming a recurring theme throughout the 2015 season. This criticism was particularly directed at Honda's project manager, Yasuhisa Arai, a key component in the failure of the project by both overpromising and under-delivering. The rigidly compartmentalized structure between the two companies saw Honda develop the engine independently of and with minimal input from McLaren, and their failure to recruit any engineers from rival engine manufacturers Mercedes, Ferrari and Renault, even after Arai's acknowledgement that Honda had underestimated the demands of the sport and the technology required to compete. Responding to the criticism, Arai claimed that the tight rear-end approach demanded by McLaren had compromised the overall design of the engine and limited the ability to develop it over the course of the season. And also that McLaren were blocking Honda's attempts to motorize other teams like Toro Rosso and Sauber, pursuing a one-on-one deal as to be the sole customers, leading to a supposed tighter partnership. Let's get to some statistics now. Out of the 19 races contested, 11 of them had at least one McLaren car not finishing, and out of the 15 retirements, 13 of them were due to engine-related issues, leaving them to score a pitiful 27 points throughout the season and leaving them in 9th place in the championship, only ahead of Sauber and Manor. The second year of McLaren Honda started off much better than the previous one. With Arai leaving Honda, it seemed like the weakest link had been eliminated in terms of Honda's misleading. Ron Dennis stated no predictions at the 2016 car launch, and the drivers sharing those opinions. The year had low expectations, and the press did as well, which helped the actual 2016 results go down much easier. Honda's reliability improved greatly, and the McLaren Aero package seemed to be doing its thing. The press was stating better than Red Bull when comparing to the Austrian team, who had ended their second season 7th in the championship, while McLaren finished 6th. Let's just forget that the Woking outfit had been racing in F1 since the 60s, right? Seems convenient, but at least much better than being a downer. Australia started off great, with both cars almost reaching the top 10 in qualifying. It looked to be a good weekend until Alonso had his famous accident the next day when he collided with Esteban Gutierrez's Haas, giving everyone a scare and him a collapsed lung, which made him miss the next event at Bahrain. Up until the 4th race in Russia, McLaren seemed not to have improved much from 2015, with DNFs and out-of-point finishes for both drivers. But on that 5th event, both cars qualified outside the top 10, meaning that they could take full advantage of the carnage higher up the pack, finishing 6th and 10th. This was the second time both the Honda-powered cars finished in the points. The rest of the season went frankly quite well. With less engine blowouts and penalties, only 4 engine-related DNFs in the whole season, the team finished in 6th place with 76 points, nearly 3 times what they scored in the previous year. It seemed like the package was much better. Honda was making not only more reliable, but all-around faster power units. Upgrades would sometimes deliver and sometimes not, but looking at the bigger picture, it was a much better year. Although they admitted to have shifted focus to the 2017 Aero rule changes by the second half of the season. 2017 was looking promising. There had been rumors that Honda were pushing for change on their power unit, and in January 6th it all came to light. Honda would be overhauling their whole engine architecture and layout for the 2017 season, pushing to mirror the Mercedes philosophy with a very high-risk plan, stating the engine architecture and layout have been altered to serve both high performance and packaging needs. The new power unit takes much from the learning from the past 2 seasons, but has been specifically redesigned for this one. Pre-season came and the problems were evident from day one. With just 29 laps completed and their fastest lap being nearly 3 seconds off the pace set by Ferrari, it looked grim for McLaren Honda, who were last at the end of the 2 weeks of testing, with a total of 425 laps. Compare that to the 802 they completed in 2020 in just 3 days to see where the problem lies. 4 days before the Australian Grand Prix, Eric Boulier gave a grim prediction about the season, stating it's not great, not at all at the level of what we wanted to show, and we didn't run much, we didn't run enough, and we don't necessarily perform when we do run. And with Honda themselves stating that they were worried about the Australian Grand Prix engine spec, not knowing what had caused the engine failures in testing. Red flag alert. Basically, both parts admitted that 2017 was gonna be a shit show. And it was. McLaren engineers stated that the engine would basically shake itself to its breaking point, with Honda blaming the positioning of the oil tank for the instability, and the vibrations to the gearbox and the tires influencing the inertia and destabilizing the power unit. But Honda decided to double down, trying to upgrade the inherently flawed power unit, and while slightly improving speed, reliability was the main issue. McLaren was also going through a management reshuffle that year, with team principal and CEO Ron Dennis stepping down after 47 years of running the team, to be replaced by businessman and marketing genius Zak Brown. But I'm getting ahead of myself, let's get back to the season. Saying the opening rounds were rough would be an understatement. With 7 retirements and 2 DNSs at the first 7 rounds, McLaren would get their first points in Azerbaijan, a race where only 13 cars would see the checkered flag, with a 9th place for Alonso. But apart from a double point finish and a 6th place for the Spaniard at the Hungarian Grand Prix, the season was just a disaster, with the team taking penalties in some races that they knew were gonna be tough to try and prepare for the circuits where they knew they would do better, only to end up DNFing in both races. That plus a dose of bad luck ended up dropping the team back down to 9th in the standings, 3 points ahead of their 2015 total, and with 16 DNFs, 2 DNSs and 7 point scoring races. This was back to square one for the impatient McLaren team, and with Honda's contract finishing at the end of the season, they had to make a choice. either to stick with Honda and their empty promises for 2018 onwards, or move to the only other supplier willing to give them a chance, Renault. But hold on a second, there are two sides to the story. McLaren were solely blaming Honda for the 2017 woes, stating that the excellent McLaren chassis was hindered and held back by the evil Japanese power unit, and Honda blaming McLaren, stating that there was no patience nor room for error given, with the team wanting to win and setting unrealistic expectations for Honda, running the power unit package too hot, too tightly fit and too fast, wanting performance and speed but not slowing down to actually build a foundation to work on. September 12th was the day the split was announced. McLaren would be running Renault engines from 2018 to 2020, and Honda would start motorizing Toro Rosso from 2019 on. The rest of the season went as expected, and 2018 couldn't come fast enough for both fed-up McLaren and frustrated Honda. We are now at the beginning of the 2021 season, and we can see what happened with retrospective and can conclusively agree that the split was the best thing that could happen to both parties. Let's begin with Honda. After continuing to build on their 2017 formula on a much smaller and less demanding team, Toro Rosso, their expectations were met for 2018, building a slower power unit but one that only had 4 engine-related DNFs throughout the season. Almost everything went according to plans from a power unit development point of view. The Italian team had no issues finishing 9th in the championship, and definitely gave more room for failure than McLaren. 2019 was a much better year. With reliability issues sorted out, they focused on performance and also started supplying top team Red Bull to what was a much better season, taking their first podium since they were a manufacturer team in the late 2000s at the season opener, and their first win came at the Austrian Grand Prix that same year. The decent Honda engine paired with the Adrian Newey designed chassis was a race-winning combination, and marked the start of a very promising and stable future for Honda in F1. Until they announced in 2020 that they would be leaving the sport, something that left everyone perplexed, but the subsequent announcement that Red Bull will be taking on their operations from 2021 on was a welcoming statement, no doubt, to ensure the commitment of the energy drinks giant to teams for the foreseeable future. McLaren found out in 2018 that the issues experienced the previous year were not all Honda's fault, and the MCL33 proved exactly that. After a promising debut in Australia, finishing 6th and taking 4th place and best of the rest in the Constructors' Championship for the first half of the season, they started dropping down. Turns out the car was super draggy on the straights and not grippy enough on the corners, and no matter what upgrade package they threw at it, it would only get worse. The team were 6th at the end of the year, only because Force India had their tally wiped as they became Racing Point, and they were only faster than the struggling Williams at the latter stages. With the technical reshuffle still taking place, Boulier stepped down and the first piece of Brown's McLaren puzzle came in. Car champion and IndyCar runner-up Gilles de Ferran as temporary racing director and then team consultant and now head of their IndyCar project. Bringing in Ferrari's Andrea Stella as new racing director, serial winner and ex-Porsche Le Mans team boss Andrea Seidel as McLaren's new team boss, design genius James Key from Toro Rosso, and a new lineup consisting of rookie Lando Norris and fast-as-shit driver Carlos Sainz completed the puzzle. This new team would go on to have little impact on the 2019 car as they joined in late 2018, but the 2019 season would still not disappoint. For that year, the team had stated low expectations and went under the radar for testing. The MCL34 had a rough start, but once it got going, it really got going, racking up the points to secure 4th in the championship, finishing ahead of manufacturer and supplier team Renault, as well as getting their first podium since the beginning of 2014 at the Brazilian Grand Prix, where all the improvements started to bear fruit, and closeout was a great improvement. If 2019 was a great year, 2020 was an amazing one. Pushing all season long to secure 3rd in the championship, they scored 2 podiums, one of them on pure pace, one that may have even been a win if there was one extra lap to the Italian Grand Prix, and although that was the least amount of them for the 3 teams battling for 3rd in the championship, the pure consistency they offered throughout the year was what helped them seal the deal in the end. From 2021 on, the Mercedes power unit will help McLaren get closer to their goal, which is to narrow the gap to the top and be championship contenders in the near future. As you may have been able to see, this partnership was both the worst, but also the best that could have happened to both parties. Honda learned that they have to keep their promising more hinged and that they have to work with the team if they want to succeed. And McLaren that they were in desperate need of a whole team reshuffle. With this new strategy and leadership, they were able to find and solve the weak points in their design, and are now closer to the top than they have ever been in a great number of years. This breakup needed to happen because, in my opinion, if they would have stuck together, they never would have worked out. McLaren may have gone under and Honda's name would have been tarnished and forced to leave the sport, maybe for good this time. Well, that's a good note to leave on. Make sure to like the video if you like it and subscribe to the channel. You can also check out the Patreon link there on the screen and also in the description. As always, thanks for watching and I will see you all next week.